I know the feeling. You see a sleek espresso machine on an Instagram post, you click add to cart because it's cheap, you get it home, and a week later the steam wand sputters, the temperature swings, and the whole ritual feels more like a chore than a pleasure. That regret hits harder when you're paying for a machine that promises quality shots but ends up delivering a lukewarm, inconsistent cup. So before you risk another disappointment, let's talk about the rocket Espresso Appartamento TCA and whether it actually feels like a smarter buy for someone who wants a serious home espresso setup without blowing the budget on a commercial-grade unit. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the Appartamento isn't a reskin of an older model. Rocket rebuilt it from the ground up, which means the layout you see on the countertop is the result of a design team that tried to solve the exact pain points people complained about in older home machines. The most noticeable change is the hybrid PID temperature control. Traditional PID-only machines give you a steady temperature but can be pricey, while non-PID units often drift by several degrees as they heat up. Rocket's hybrid approach lets you dial in the brew temperature with a simple knob and then the system fine-tunes it behind the scenes. In practice, that means if you're pulling a single espresso at 93 C and you decide to switch to a ristretto at 90 C, the machine settles into the new set point within a handful of seconds, not minutes. For a daily user who likes to experiment with different beans and dose ratios, that quick response translates into less waiting time and more consistent flavor. The machine also adds a 30-minute eco mode. When you're not in the kitchen, you can engage standby, and the heater drops to a lower power level while still keeping the boiler ready for a pull. I've tried it in a small apartment where the thermostat is already fighting the winter chill. The eco mode shaved off a couple of dollars on the electric bill each month and, more importantly, it kept the boiler from constantly cycling on and off, which can shorten the lifespan of any espresso machine. The trade-off is that you lose the instant convenience. You have to wait about a minute after hitting the power button for the boiler to come back up. If you're the type who runs to the kitchen for an espresso the moment you wake up, that extra minute might feel like a nuisance, but most of us are already juggling a few minutes of morning prep anyway. One of the more subtle yet useful updates is the RGB indicator light. It glows green when the machine is ready, amber while it's heating, and flashes red if there's a temperature error. It sounds gimmicky, but after a few weeks of use, it actually saves you a glance at the pressure gauge or a guesswork moment wondering whether the boiler is finally stable. The light is bright enough to be seen across a kitchen island but not so harsh that it disrupts a low-light evening brew. The visual cue becomes part of the routine, especially for beginners who are still learning to read the little pressure bars on the gauge. Now, who should consider the Appartamento? If you're an intermediate home barista who already knows how to grind, dose, and tamp, and you own a grinder that can consistently produce 18-20 gram doses, this machine gives you the temperature precision you need to push those beans to their full potential. It's also a good fit for someone who appreciates aesthetics. The black case with copper accents looks at home in a modern kitchen, and the handcrafted Italian finish gives a sense of permanence. The machine's footprint is relatively compact for a dual boiler system, so it works in a modest countertop space without forcing you to clear out other appliances. On the flip side, if you're a casual coffee drinker who only needs a latte a few times a week, the Appartamento might be overkill. Its learning curve is real. You have to spend time dialing in the PID, mastering the steam wand, and understanding the impact of water temperature on extraction. Those who just want a push-button espresso experience will probably feel more comfortable with a super automatic that does the grinding and tamping for them. Likewise, the price point, while not as high as Rocket's larger commercial machines, still sits in a range where you could buy a decent grinder and a separate high-quality kettle for the same money, which could be a smarter allocation of funds if you're still building your coffee toolkit. In terms of practical strengths, the hybrid PID really shines when you're pulling multiple drinks back-to-back. I ran a mini coffee tasting session with 3 friends, each wanting a different espresso profile. Within a 10-minute window, I switched temperatures, adjusted the dose, and the machine kept delivering shots that were within a few points of my target extraction time. The consistency was impressive, especially compared to a non-PID unit I've owned before, which would overheat after the second pull and ruin the next cup. The standby mode also.